You're very welcome back. Now, a new documentary on Virgin Media One follows the experience of our next guest, who had brain surgery after dealing with debilitating seizures since early childhood.
Here to discuss her experience with epilepsy is Cooke, and she's joined by neurosurgeon Donncha O'Brien. And thank you both so much for being here today.
Thanks,
Before we start chatting, let's take a look at the lead up to Katie's surgery.
After a week monitoring feedback from the electrode grid, the team is confident that the source of Katie's seizures has been pinpointed. Now, Donncha O'Brien is preparing for an especially delicate surgery. Tomorrow, Katie will finally have the part of her brain that's causing her seizures removed. Naturally, she's anxious, and Donncha's keen to offer his support.
So we have a fair idea where the seizures are coming from.
Okay.
To the best of our knowledge. But so look, this is a big opportunity, you know, so we're excited about this. This isn't a chore for us. You're the brave one. You're the one with the courage.
It's unbelievable. We can just see the connection between you there as you're doing this. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Katie, let's talk about this epilepsy you've had since you were a child. It was debilitating. How many seizures were you having, we'll say, a day, and what did it look like?
Well, look, I've had epilepsy since I was 8, and for a portion of my life, it was relatively controlled. But for about 10 years, it was about 10 to 15 seizures, and that was, like, manageable.
A day?
A day. And then it went on to 20, and then 30. And for the most part, it was okay, because I recovered quickly. But then I started having status epilepticus, which is a seizure lasting more than 15 minutes. And mine were lasting hours at some point. So that's when it became unmanageable.
What sort of treatments were you trying to tackle this?
Everything and anything. I've been on most of the anti-epileptic drugs. I tried something called IVIG, which is intravenous immunoglobulins. I tried steroids. I had VNS.
Okay.
And all of them, you know, were controlling a portion of it, is what I was told, but not all of it.
I'm sorry, we're trying to get our heads around the fact that you could be having up to 30 seizures a day, some lasting for hours. No one can live life like that. So, Donncha, this is where you step in and you had...
This is where we come in. Unfortunately, Katie had drug-resistant epilepsy. The seizures weren't being controlled by medication. So we then work the patient up to see whether there's an area of the brain which is responsible for that directly. So standard workup would include surface EEG. But in Katie's case, we had to do it an extra step. We had to do, as you said earlier, Tommy, we had to put this grid in, this sensory grid in, to try and determine where the seizures were coming from, which is laid directly over the surface of the brain.
So how does that work?
It works whereby we open the skull, where we thought that the seizures were coming from the right posterior frontal area, so we opened the skull in that area, and then we laid this big mat of sensory electronic system over the surface of the brain, and that'll detect where the seizures are coming from. And then we can pinpoint those areas to the grid, to our navigation systems, and then we can subsequently go in and operate on that. The added complexity to Katie's case is that where the seizures were coming from was just in front of her motor cortex, i.e. the area of her brain which controls movement on the left side of her body. So we just can't remove that as well. So we had to determine one from the other, the seizure focus from the motor cortex, leave the motor cortex intact, and then remove the seizure focus.
This is incredible.
It was a bit painful, I won't lie.
How dare you, Donncha? So when you are you knocked out for all of this?
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, thank God, right? You're knocked out for all of this, because there was a complication, wasn't there? With
There was. We found when we went back to do the ultimate resection that there was a small clot of blood on the surface of the grid, so we had to remove the clot of blood and keep the grid intact, because if the grid moved, we'd lose the orientation of that, and then we'd remove we could lose sight of the potential target. So it's important to keep everything.
It's just phenomenal. There's no practice on this, is there? When you're going in there, you see what area of the brain needs to come out. Are you going by just experience?
Well, we have a predetermined resection zone or epileptogenic zone that we map with neurology and neurophysiology. So we have a game plan beforehand. Now, as you correctly say, it's a one-chance deal. we have to resect that and not damage the rest of the brain and make sure we do it properly.
Katie, it's your brain. And I know you were having these seizures, but you're going in and someone's poking around and you know, it's very sensitive. How were you going into this?
I wasn't really given a choice. Like, not in terms of, like, no one was, like, holding me down, but...
But you couldn't live your life the way you
Yeah,
want.
I didn't really have a choice. So I was already at, like, quite a big risk.
Okay.
So it was kind of like, well, this is the better risk to take.
That's what you felt? You were like, okay.
Yeah, and was advised by...
She had no choice. She would die from the seizures were she not to have the operation. She said status epilepticus, but what that meant was that she was in St. James's intensive care nearly every night and in the high dependency in St. James's as a result of the seizures. Status epilepticus is a continuum of seizures. It's one going into another, into another.
You show huge empathy in this,
of course,
because you're seeing what you're going through and you're connected. You're kind of saying, you're the brave one here. And this is a chance of a new way of life.
Absolutely.
It's amazing to see that relationship you have with your patients.
You couldn't but feel for somebody as lovely and wonderful as Katie.
Ah.
And the courage she has shown to overcome this and confront her seizures and her condition. And it takes courage and conviction. And
does it make it harder for you to have that empathy, or do you need that sort of empathy going into?
Neurosurgery is a tough business with tough operations, tough conditions. You've got to feel the patient's pain and you've got to go in and take that on board and do the very best you can for the patient.
It's your brain at the end of the day, Katie, and you had to deal with the recovery. So how was it? How have you been? You said there it was sore. I'm sure you woke up feeling tender, to say the least.
So the first one, like, worst pain of my life, horrific. The second one was actually not bad, like, compared to it. Like, it was actually all right.
Okay.
The recovery was a lot quicker than I thought. Now, like, that being said, like, I napped like 3-4 times a day for a couple of months. I actually went to a wedding like 2 months later.
But you must have been sleeping a huge amount for the brain to recover. It must have needed you to do that.
Yeah.
You're 3 months with no seizures, so is that right?
Yeah. 3 months now, seizures.
Seriously?
To go from, 20, 30 potentially a day to this, must be just...
It's mad. I constantly catch myself and I'm like, I should be having a seizure right now. Like, this is seizure o'clock. Like, oh my God. I catch myself and it's amazing and odd and wonderful all at the same time.
Has it given you a new life?
Yeah. I'm looking for a job at the moment.
You want to go back into the workforce?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that was something you weren't able to do before.
Yeah, for 2 years I haven't had a job.
For 2 years you haven't had a job because the seizures were debilitating, obviously. You said yourself and your partner's life, you're now fiancé's
yes,
life.
I know.
Engaged.
It was tough.
Yeah. He was my constant carer. He's like an absolute angel of a man.
And now what does life look like for you? What is it like? This is incredible.
Yeah. So I never know what to say about this because it's just amazing. Like, Donncha has just given me this whole life and I will never ever be able to thank this man enough, ever.
And you owe him as well. He ran a marathon for you. Like, is he the man that keeps on giving? Did you run a marathon?
The Cork Marathon. No, Katie was a runner as well, so we've got this big running thing in common.
Yeah, we have a running bond.
You have a running bond.
It's just fascinating, and this documentary just goes back behind the curtain to see exactly the impact.
It's a really good show, and it's brilliant. And the 4 reasons we wanted to do it in Beaumont were to highlight how good neurosurgery in Beaumont is. There's all this Irish thing about how we're second best and far away hills are green. Well, certainly in Ireland, we have the #1 neurosurgical department in Beaumont. Number 2, we wanted to show how good Beaumont is in general. It's a fantastic place. Number 3, for all your audience and the Irish nation to show all these new technologies that you mentioned, Miriam. And number 4, I suppose as clinical director, I'm here to kind of highlight the fact that we do need extra resources for Beaumont. We do need extra machines and equipment and theatre and beds. And why not? I mean, if Katie is an example of what can be done through Irish neurosurgery, and if there are other complicated cases such as brain tumours, spine tumours, Parkinson's disease, complex low-grade gliomas that Kieran Sweeney does, etc. Why shouldn't we use all this equipment for that?
We were talking...
And it's no expense. It's no expense.
Can we talk about that very quickly? Because we were talking last week as well about this, about a catchment area of 4 million people. We have got over a 25 million, almost 26 billion euro budget for healthcare in Ireland, the most per capita in Europe. Look at what you can do for someone's life.
This,
So, Donncha, what's going on in the health system? What
Well,
do you think?
all I know is, you know, like with this winter escalation thing that's been happening for the last, we've worked non-stop. We just work around the clock, all the doctors, nurses, secretaries, porters, everybody in Beaumont just gives it everything, as indeed does every other hospital.
Yeah.
But I think we don't have enough beds within the system, and I don't think we have enough theatres, and all of that costs money. There's a very nice, juicy Apple fund here for 12 billion. Maybe we could use some of that.
You say you have 100 odd beds, you need 200, 6 to 7 operating theatres instead of the 2 to 3, and to see the impact on somebody's life like that.
Why should the Irish nation be second best to anything?
Absolutely.
Why should we say, oh, we need to go to New York to do this? We have it all here.
Yeah. But there is an issue with how much we're spending and what the money is being spent on.
Yeah.
There has to be something, right? Yeah.
And sure, it's very, very frustrating as well from that side of things. But listen, congratulations. Thank you for doing the amazing work that you are doing in Beaumont Hospital as well, Professor Donncha O'Brien and Katie Cooke. Great.
Planning her wedding now.
Planning her wedding.
Planning her wedding.
We'll be in our 60s.
A new job.
The cost.
We're delighted for you now. It's
Thank you
absolutely
so much.
fantastic. Thank you so much.
It's incredible to watch. We got a sneak preview. It's such a good programme. You can watch Brain Doctors Inside Neurosurgery. It's on tonight at 9 p.m. on Virgin Media 1 and Virgin
One
Media
little
Play.
plug to the production team, Tyrone Productions. The producers are absolutely amazing people. Maura, Gary and Ross, absolutely fantastic. So thank you to them.
Fair play.